I started seeing objects move before I look at them. Now they move when I'm not thinking about them. Part 1. I first noticed something was wrong when a chair shifted slightly before I turned to look at it. And I stopped immediately, trying to understand if I imagined the movement or if it had actually happened early. I tested it again by turning slowly toward another object and watching carefully, and it had adjusted position slightly before I focused on it, confirming that the change was not tied to direct observation or physical movement in any normal way. At first I assumed it was perspective distortion or memory error, but the placement changes were too consistent to match any visual issue. I could explain logically, which made it feel like something else was determining where things were. I tried observing multiple objects at once to track the changes, but each one shifted independently and only when I wasn't looking directly, which made it impossible to monitor everything at once without missing something moving elsewhere. I stopped moving and kept my eyes fixed on one spot, and nothing changed until I thought about looking somewhere else, and then something shifted before I turned my head, which made it clear it reacted to intention. That was when I realized it wasn't reacting to sight, but to intention, because the movement always occurred before I decided to look directly, and that meant something was processing my focus before I acted and adjusting things. I tried to mislead it by thinking about one object and looking at another, but the original object shifted instead of the one I actually focused on, which confirmed it was following thought instead of physical direction. The more I tested it, the more it felt like I wasn't choosing where to look because everything was adjusting ahead of me based on something unseen, and I was just following the result instead of creating the action. I stayed still, trying not to think about anything specific, and the room remained unchanged for a moment until I stopped focusing entirely, and then something shifted again without any input from me at all. That was when I understood the movement didn't need me to trigger it because it was continuing on its own, and I was no longer part of the cause, and everything was already happening before I noticed. Follow for part 2.